And welcome back. We have with us on set a very lively bunch. We have with us Arthur Usher, who's a Communications and Program Officer from the National AIDS Commission. We have Dr. Keisha Westby Leonardo, who's the Assistant Coordinator of the National TB Program in the Ministry of Health. And we also have joining us corporate ambassadors. Melonie Cock, who's the Senior Brand Manager at the Grace brand, and no stranger to our set, wearing a different hat this morning. And Aisha Trapp, who's the Brand and Marketing Manager over at San Cas Ltd, and she is representing the brand this morning. Good morning, ladies and good gentlemen.
Good morning.
World AIDS Day 2018 Know Your Status campaign. What is going on this year?
Well, as is traditional around this time of year, the National AIDS Commission takes on the coordination role of providing the programming for World AIDS Day. And what we try to focus on each of these activities is testing. Again, knowing your status. That's the only way to know your status is getting tested through whichever agency, so the Ministry of Health or BFLA or wherever you go privately, know your status. Generally, the Commission also tries to do a more community-based program as well. So we would add to the just testing, right? So this year, this is the reason why we have these lovely young ladies here. We're also doing a food package program where we're delivering food nationwide to families living with HIV. So that's a separate or addition program to the testing day, which is November 30th nationwide. So that's part of our programming for this year.
So it's going to be marked tomorrow.
Right. So it's tomorrow at the 8 sites nationwide, and it's come out, get tested, and know your status. There will be other booths, other agencies out there doing other services. And this is nationwide. We do this twice a year with our national testing day in June, and we do World AIDS Day programming in December.
Before we get further in, let's talk a little bit about the involvement of the other entities represented here. Why is there a representative from the National TB program? Why is that such a critical part to the marking of National AIDS Day?
Okay, well, as Arthur had mentioned, the Ministry of Health is a part of the National AIDS Commission. And I am here representing not only TB but HIV. I am the Assistant Coordinator for the TB program, but also the Acting M&E Officer for both TB and HIV within the Ministry of Health. M&E, Monitoring and Evaluation Officer. Yes, and TB also is an integral part because we do tend to see, and not only here in Belize but worldwide, a lot of co-infections when it comes to persons living with HIV being also infected with tuberculosis as well. So we do try to do joint ventures, a lot of collaboration when it comes to both TB and HIV.
Now, I would say that in terms of the profile that AIDS has had in Belize over the last 5+ years, it has diminished, not completely, but considerably. Is it something that people are still worried about? Is it because of the medication that is available that the mindset of most people has changed? I thought you can jump in too, don't worry.
I think it's difficult to say. While yes, we have improved considerably, we do still have new infections every year, and it is something that people should still be concerned about. And that we are trying to still have continuous improvement. But there are challenges because we still do have persons who access health services late, as it's not the ideal situation, but that is why we continue to try to educate the public, and we continue to try to get persons, as per the theme for this year's World AIDS Day, to know their status. It's something that we continue to work on, but we should still be concerned, and again, I'm not sure exactly why the general mindset for the public has changed. I'm not sure if Arthur has any.
There is, again,
Input?
yeah, we were speaking in the waiting area there. We do education and communication and bombardment of information will lead to some change, because basically people can say that they don't know, right? The issue is transferring that knowledge to behavior,
Yeah.
right? And so the fact that you may have the information does not mean that you change your behavior. We are subject to social issues and cultural dynamics, and so people might say, well, yeah, I know about HIV, but this is how we're going. We also have to factor in, some people might, and we spoke the last time about male behavior versus female behavior and health-seeking behaviors and stuff like that. We are seeing some change in the men in terms of how they access services, not waiting too late, but we still need to see better with that. Women on a whole tend to seek help better and come into the services and access the services, and that kind of helps with their health-seeking behavior. But on a whole, the issue is still how men deal with sickness and illness and accessing help, right? So,
last week we had a representative from CANCAP, because there was a parliamentary convention on AIDS and HIV, and one of the things that we had discussed was that one of the major factors is stigma and discrimination.
right.
Now, it's weird that part of what taking away stigma and discrimination is to take away some of the fear
Right.
Yeah.
and some of the misinformation.
Right.
Yeah.
But can I ask you this question in terms of, isn't some of that fear healthy? It's kind of like telling your kids, don't play in the street. And then you frighten them to tell them, listen, that, you know, a huge spaceship will knock them off the center of the road.
Right.
But the truth is that the street is dangerous. So a certain element of fear is important, not necessarily the angle of using it to discriminate against somebody, but to be cautious in the activities that put you at risk. So my question is, isn't some of the, is it that success is causing some of its own problems in that people now are aware, they have more access, but that now, because they're familiar with what it is, that they seem to treat it like a pet snake, which is,
Right.
which I know what it is. It can bite me, but I know what it is.
Right, right.
So does it have the reverse effect? A little.
I would say to a degree. And you are right in that the more I perceive that I know something and I am familiar with it, I might be less inclined to worry about it, because it's there, it's in the background. Okay, HIV exists, okay, fine, I know. What the data, and I'm sure Doc could speak to that, would say is maybe the reverse, in that you think you know, but your actions again don't lead to your knowledge, and so then we end up with still having a high HIV prevalence rate in Belize. Because you would say, okay, if I know, then the rate should go down, right? But we're still maintaining that rate, and as Doc said, we get new infections every year. So why is that still happening? Right?
And to follow up on that, I have this belief that Belizean culture, we're very disconnected. We have a third person sort of approach to life. It not happen to me.
Right.
You get robbed, you know, my neighbor and I could rob everybody on the street, but it just won't happen to me.
Right.
You know, you were fired, somebody treat you bad, but it just won't happen to me. And if it does happen to me, well. When you take that same mentality, if that is true to HIV AIDS, people might say, listen, there's a high prevalence, but it just doesn't
Happen to me.
It not happen to me. Even though I might be engaging in all the same risk factors, multiple partners, unprotected sex, etc. How do you communicate to people to get them past that cultural reality of saying this is not something that's going to affect me, something I'm going to read about, something I'm going to watch the National AIDS Commission deal with, but it just doesn't affect me?
That would be, I guess, direct communication. Our ads since August this year, we've put out, I think, about 5 different ads dealing with different areas of some of the same issues. I know some people, we got controversial reviews on the wedding ads, and People are like, oh
Good
no,
man.
right. So you're like, oh no, what ain't you this right? But again, to your point, it can happen to anybody, right? So we have to present these issues, and we do it artistically, and we try to poke some humor, but at the same time, that is to make the message resonate, right? Those are those tools to make the message resonate, but we have to be consistently vigilant when it comes to these messaging.
Yeah.
I will continue in the same vein, but along the lines that we've seen globally, this migration in terms of the messaging from the ABCs to the stigma and discrimination, which for a lot of people in Belize is not built with the fear factor or the mindfulness that, that behavior change must come. Perhaps, is that a part of the challenge that, you know, what you see on TV, whether it's, you know, moving towards things like PrEP, or, you know, it's more, okay, it's out there, but I can conquer this beast, you know, as opposed to the reality here.
Yeah. And I guess that is true for the most part, because again, as Arthur had mentioned, while we are trying to utilize different strategies, you know, to get the message out there. Because yes, education is key. It is key, but sometimes we have to look at the strategy or how we go about educating the public to try to bring about that behavior change. But yes, at times, I guess due to our culture and various aspects of our society here in Belize, it has proved challenging.
And I ask this question because about the ABCs, when we still have challenges with putting in sexual and reproductive health education in schools, where do they get it? Before there was a gap because that could be filled because you had the messaging outside. You know, you were still talking about condom use, you were talking about abstinence, you were talking about so many other things, but you don't necessarily have those messages anymore. Have we made strides in terms of the sexual and reproductive health education and penetrating or collaborating, no pun intended, with the penetrating, but the health, the educational sector to make sure that a lot of young people have the information as opposed to going to Mr. Google and finding out what they want?
Well, just recently, I think, well, I was at the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Quads had a workshop that they invited young people and people to kind of revisit the health education system and what information to put in the HFLE and things like that. So I think that we are looking at it. The issue to me is still cultural and or little personal biases and fears and whatever else. Each school does this part, but they don't do all and that kind of stuff. We're looking at standardizing and saying, look, this is what has to be taught in every school in the country, minimum sexual health, so that every child can have this education. Google is not bad, but it is best to have a communication as somebody that you can speak to directly and somebody who understands your cultural issues in terms of explaining your sexuality and how it plays out in Belize. You might get standard medical information from Google, and that's fine, but you need to understand the dynamics of your country as well and how to navigate.
And to piggyback off Will's question, in terms of on December 1st, you guys are going to be collaborating with corporate partners. And before we get to that collaboration, there are two other collaborations that I'd like you to address separately. Part of knowing your status is getting tested. That is, they're synonymous. To know your status, you have to get tested.
Yes, right.
You can't say, boy, well, I never do this. I don't think that person not dead yet. That's not the way it's done.
Right.
It has to be a test, a scientific test. And partnership is important because it allows you to make it socially palatable. You know, see everybody's doing it. It's a public space.
Right.
In terms of collaboration, I wanted to ask you to address two stakeholders. One, even in terms of sexual reproductive health, the religious community has been at odds with the way that the education process is happening to happen in the schools.
Right.
Is there an effort, or can there be an effort to specifically collaborate so that after the church service, after you've given your offering and you've given your tithes and you've heard the sermon, that you immediately move into getting tested? And that help in terms of that aspect. And secondly, another collaboration, is there any effort? We had PANCAP here, and one of the questions I posed to them was, listen, you're meeting the parliamentarians, but on the testing day, I don't see 31 members of the House out there getting tested.
Right.
That would send a significant message to our community to say, listen, we know just to start this thing. We know just the House, and maybe that would help. How are we in terms of those two stakeholders and being able to partner with them in a real way to register on people? That would cause shock and awe.
Well,
31 out here? So could you talk to us about the collaborations with other stakeholders to sort of normalize and to sort of encourage the interest?
Well, the Council of Churches is a member of the National AIDS Commission, and they have the integral in terms of how the response has been moving for the past 20, 30 years. In terms of your idea of moving people directly from the church.
Question.
Again, testing is voluntary, so we can't really force anybody to take one test. But that's a good idea to have a
Access.
ministry health person at the churches right after ceremony and go get tested.
Jesus would want you to get tested.
I would believe so.
It's his birthday.
That aside, the churches have reached out to us on countless occasions, and I think actually this weekend is one of our busiest weekends because they do ask that members from the commission go out and speak to the church. So we've gotten multiple requests and more over the last 3-4 years to come out and speak to their population. They have a captive audience already. Come, and the pastor will allow us maybe 20 minutes to speak. And after that, we would get...
That's a huge step.
Right, that's a big step. That's a big step. You would not have gotten that 10 years ago. And so after that, we would normally stay, and the population would come and speak to us outside if they want something private after that. So that's a big step. And again, that's a part of them understanding and we understanding our role and how we partner and how we collaborate. I missed the second question is
the parliamentarians.
The parliamentarians.
All 31 plus the Senate.
Again, that's voluntary, coming with the test. I think now that we've had that engagement last week, Thursday, they are a bit more aware. And to move them, again, is also boils down to behavior change. Because to move any individual to come and get tested, they have to see the work, right? And they have to understand that behavior change. And we would welcome that big parliamentarian leadership coming out, getting tested, setting the example. But again, that would be we would have to work on that, coordinating with them.
Yeah. And you're talking about a good strategy there in terms of advocacy and collaboration. But before we, end up with stiff neck on this,
Right.
let's shift on those who are willing to partner and talk to Aisha and Mel a little bit about why your organizations decided to actually join this. Because believe it or not, this is still sometimes a very ticklish or controversial issue still.
It is. This year, we always pride ourselves in sponsoring organizations that stand for a national concern. We do many feeding programs. We do Kidney Association, Diabetes Association. But I've worked with Mr. Usher before, and I saw it as a national concern. Having lines like alcoholic beverages that we represent, and you're out there and you're seeing the behavior, and you're saying, okay, I need to be socially responsible as well to get the message out there as San Cas, because I'm representing this that can lead to this, but I have to ensure that I do my part to get the message out there as well. We had a discussion that we had to be They came for us 2 times because we're having a lot of discussion about it, because we're all concerned about how our young people, you know, their responsibilities and their behavioral problem and so on. So if we can do just a small part, you know, to assist with this additional program that the National AIDS Commission is having, is adding to the activities, then yes, we will do it. I was so happy that we embraced it as San Cas Ltd. And you said it's a ticklish subject, and I want to encourage my peers as a group. We hire 450 people. That's 450 additional. That's so many families could be affected. So you want to encourage them to, like Kevin said, there is a fear, which can be good and bad, but you want to encourage them to stay healthy. It's not only about eating right or exercising, but you need to know.
And Mel?
Basically, we have the same sentiments that Grace Kennedy, like Alicia had mentioned, in terms of your social responsibility. And likewise, we do have our beverage line as well. And the behavior, the new attitudes that teenagers, young people have developed, it's really, really, it has changed. You know, we were talking and I'm like, I don't know if I'm a bit still old-fashioned in terms of certain practices, but
we'll say out of touch.
Out of touch. But you know, I think, like I mentioned to them, some of the practices that I had with my mom growing up, you still try to instill that in your kids. You know, that this is basically the ethical thing to do. This is not, you know, this is not something that you're supposed to do, kind of thing. And looking at it from an organizational standpoint, I was like totally excited when I got the letter from Arthur in terms of giving back to the community, especially to people that would, you know, carry a certain stigma over their heads, you know, and things like that tend to have me a bit excited in the sense that I want to give to them, because these are people that we tend to forget at times. And it's not only the parents, but they also have kids in these families. And once we're able to provide to these individuals, then we're hoping that that will trickle down to the kids as well. And it's Christmas time. You know, who doesn't deserve a good meal? So given the products that both Grace Kennedy and likewise San Cas has, I'm sure that they had a wonderful Christmas basket that even if they were wondering where Christmas is coming from, you know, they're certain that, you know what, I have majority of it. It's just the turkey and ham missing.
I have one follow-up, because about 3 weeks ago, I was in Dangriga with Power, and they had a night out for women. And, you know, they still do the condoms demonstration. You know, you learn a lot about condoms, you know. But I know that there's also AIDS workplace policy. Is it something that is still kind of under the radar in terms, and why has Belize was one of the first to sign on to that and actually put in a policy? Is it something that is still, you know, little known?
Yeah, that would be the word. That would be the word. And most employees don't know their rights when it comes to HIV in the workplace. We have, I think it was early this year or late last year, where we revisited it with the Labor Department and tried to tackle it. We had a lot of businesses come out for that session, and some of them are further ahead than others in terms of implementation, where there's no discrimination, and they're willing to put in other mechanisms. But generally, it falls under the taboo of HIV within the country. So businesses might be still a bit touchy in terms of touching it and how they touch it and how it is implemented within their system. And we're telling them, look, man, it's basic, just not discriminate. You know,
and the second part of you know, why I mentioned Power is because is there still a feminization of the disease countrywide, where we still have that trend?
Okay, when it comes to for the statistics, for example, yes, we still have females being infected, but more recent statistics have been showing that more men are testing positive, even though
New infections.
New infections. That's new infections. Yes. So even though we usually have more females testing when it comes to testing days or regular testing, we've been finding that more males are testing positive for new infections, yes.
Can I just noticing something here, Arthur? It's December 1st is World AIDS Day. And I wanted to know if it was deliberate that you chose an iconic local company and well-known regional. No, I'm not talking about the quality of the two representatives that came.
One is regional and one is
But is there some deliberateness in choosing these particular two companies for?
The thought process behind the planning committee was simple. We need to find companies willing and able and who would give us the space to do this program. Our first two thought was Grace and San Cas. And we were lucky that they agreed upon signing a letter and sending the stuff and come pick up the stuff and do the packaging. I don't think I really saw it as regional versus local. I was just
Complementing local.
Right, complementing local. I'm just, look, we know Grace, we know San Cas, let's try them, see what happened. And they said yes, and we went with it. So that was it basically.
I know we're winding down to the end of the segment, but interestingly enough, night before last I was watching the news, international news, and there is this new drug where if you are not HIV positive, you can actually take it to reduce the risk of contracting the disease if you are known to be in risk, risky in a risky group. So I wanted to talk about, although it might seem very mundane, the benefits of simply being tested, of knowing what your status is. One of the benefits surely is that I look at the commercial and I said, well, this is a good reason to go and get tested now because I can actually proactively stem it off. It's like getting a flu shot. I don't want to minimalize it too much, but what are the benefits of being tested, particularly at a time where, as I joked before we came on, if you ask every Belizean on Albert Street what the top 10 things for Christmas, for December are, except for your birthday, I'm sure that knowing your status is not one of them. Yeah. And we know how many babies we have in September.
Right. The importance of knowing the status is I guess it's simple. It's knowledge, right? So, but it's knowledge that puts you at ease.
Except for the 2 weeks. Traditionally, when you're getting your test.
Right. So people back in the days, I worry for 2 weeks and then wait for the phone call. But that's no longer the case. Based on technology and based on all these things, you know your status in 15 minutes, and that comes with counseling and all that stuff that the Ministry of Health provides. So we and this is the reason why these are so successful, right? It speaks to the population's need for rapid and quick and accessible services. And so doing that nationwide, it puts, a lot of people come up after they don't test, the happiest person, right? They're the happiest person. And you can see that, and what we've seen over the years is couples come, the girlfriend bring the boyfriend bring the girlfriend, and two of them come get tested. Now that again speaks to behavior change. You would have never said that 15 to 20 years ago. And it shows that people are thinking along the lines of health change and how I live my life and how I move and how I do certain things. And so we have to continue our programming. We have to continue multi-sectorial programming, right? The AIDS Commission is made up of government agencies, NGOs, church, everybody, business community is a part of the AIDS Commission. And so doing that it's a national initiative, it's a national focus.
I think, knowing your status, it empowers you.
Right.
It's me taking responsibility for my health.
Right.
Yeah, so I go, I test, I know where I stand, I know what health challenges I may face or may not face. And then I am able then to have the ability, if I need to seek further health services, I can do that as well. But it's me being empowered, me being able to say, okay, this is where I stand, and being able to move forward from there.
That sounds good. However, what Belizeans don't like is bad news, and so the fear of the bad news. Because if you knew that your status,
human nature, though.
Well, I'm talking about it in a Belizean context,
Yes,
because the
I
testing is going to be here. We're trying to encourage people here
Yes.
to come out tomorrow
Right.
and to face that fear,
Yeah.
because there's a bigger picture in terms of there's hope at the end of it, no matter what it is. That's the good thing about technology,
Right.
no?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter the result.
Yes.
There is still hope. There is still access to services. There's all these things. There's
And it's
counseling.
not a death sentence.
Right, it's not a
Exactly,
death
and that's the
sentence.
message that
Right.
we continually try to get across, that HIV is not a death sentence. We have treatment available, we have health services available, and there are many persons who are living with HIV, and they've been living with HIV for years and years and continue to do so. And you might never know who that person is and what.
One question, because you're talking about packaging, food for them. One of the things years ago I had been exposed to was the need for vitamins for people who, is that something that you all are also including in the packaging? Because I know for a lot of people that's a struggle,
Right.
while you're taking your meds and everything, your body, you need the vitamins as well, no?
Well,
And
not
I
in
know
this package.
they have some good lines, of vitamins.
Right. But yeah. So not specifically in this. This was a first year for us. We're looking at it because I said we do 2 major activities per year. So maybe next June we can add to it. We can do more. We basically did 130 packages this year nationwide. And what the commission does is we go to the agencies and we distribute to the agencies, and the agencies then distribute to the families. We would lean on them again next year to say, look, how can we change this? How can we add to this? What were the perceptions of the people that you met, so we can get feedback, so we can better the program. So it's just for right now, it's a tweaking, and we're hoping to add in the vitamins.
That's a very good question. We did select some of the items we put in there. For next year, we will have improved our line of vitamins that we carry, and we did open a pharmacy instead of Sayview, so that we are moving somewhat into that. So we hope that this is a great partnership with the National AIDS Commission, and we encourage other businesses to join up as well, so that next year we do maybe we can put in the turkey and the ham too, right? Calling on those businesses, because you find that during this time, like Kevin said, you're not thinking about that, but maybe us being a part of this, is the beginning of something great, that where we can encourage people. Listen, yes, they don't like bad news, but knowing, like what Dr. Keisha said, that you need to know. You need to know, and I think our first step is encouraging our co-workers to take this step and to know,
So what are the nuts and bolts of the celebrations? Where is it happening? Where all is it happening? And when does it start? What are the details?
It's 9 to 3, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Testing at 8 sites: San Pedro, Corozal, Orange Rock, Belize City, Bemopan, San Ignacio, Dangriga, and PG. So it's testing. It's in other districts. They have a lot of supporting. So we have like different agencies coming out and giving other services. We also have games, stuff like that, music. In Belize City, we will have the official handing over ceremony at Battlefield Park. That's 9:30 tomorrow morning. That's handing over to the packaging, per se, to the Belize City agencies. So like Hand in Hand Ministries, BFLA, and so forth. We've already done the district handing over throughout the week. So yesterday was my last day. I did San Pedro yesterday. And so tomorrow it's Belize City.
And to find out the further details, you have a Facebook page? Or
Yeah, it's on the Facebook page, National Youth Commission Facebook page. There is the ad running that's specifically to each site where you can go. We do have our posters, our banners out, so anyone can do that. For those who can download or who want to download the app, there is the National AIDS Commission testing app. And you can just go on Google Play or iOS and type in National AIDS Commission. You'll see both of our apps pop up. You download the app shows you where to get tested within the country. It's linked to Google Maps. You can walk through based on all of your, where you are in the country, pinpoints. It shows you where to go, what time they're open, what services they offer. And I will be posting a quick reminder about the World AIDS Day on that app. So if you download the app, you'll get a prompt.
I believe the Ministry of Health also has a press release that also highlights the various districts and where the testing will be occurring. For the Belize district specifically, I believe the testing will occur on actual World AIDS Day, which is the first Saturday, the 1st of December at the Constitution Park. So that's the only difference.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this morning. Not an easy topic to discuss, but a necessary one nevertheless. So we want to thank you all for joining us this morning. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we look at some fine things. Don't go anywhere. Open your eyes continues after these messages.